I'm doing good. I'm good. Things are okay. I'm not really sure. You didn't reply. I mean, yeah, just say, I'm doing good. That's what I like to hear. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall. A few moments later, he might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. Z, you made it. Thanks for coming. Cove's voice was unnaturally loud, as if he thought you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were, only a few feet away. Hi, Cove. You doing okay? Yeah, I'm fine. He didn't sound convincing at all. You narrowed your eyes suspiciously, but didn't call him out on it. If you could talk to him alone tonight, maybe you ask him what was going on. Then, it was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes. Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud, but I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. I'm your guest? Excuse me? What? As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. Oh, never mind. I assume. You coming? The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. He smiled pleased that he asked and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two! We'll call you when food's ready to go. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. This was the first time you were invited to see Cove's room. You had visited Cove's room before, but only rarely. Going over to Cove's room was a standard occurrence for you nowadays. I'm trying to think, like, how I am with my friends. Because I feel like nowadays it's rare, sure, because everyone's, like, off to college. But before that, I'll go with the last option. Cove got the door first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. Oh, look at his room be looking so nice. I see you got a loft bed. I'm thinking about getting one. I wasn't mad on. Oh, look at all those seats. I'm sorry. I'm just like, we haven't seen this before, so I'm like, just peeping everything. Okay, I'll stop. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold into his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. I think I like my room more than his, though. The sensation was nothing new to you, of course. Cove constantly came back to his room covered in sand, not bothering to clean himself off at the front door, and got it all over his personal space. That's just how he was, a little bit of a mess. You hadn't heard Mr. Holden ever scold him for it, not like your moms would have if you'd done it. You can sit wherever you want. Cove himself took a seat at the edge of his large bed, looking like the picture of comfort, and left you to the side. He didn't sit anywhere. He sat down on a chair. He sat next to Cove on his bed. I'd probably sit down on the chair. There was a desk chair in the room for a reason, after all. You walked over and rolled it out, taking a seat on it. It was stiff against your butt and creaked each time you shifted. He definitely used his bed space more often than this. Well, too late to complain now. You just have to deal with it. With the silence growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. Oh, I didn't even notice that. There were a bunch of them floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish? My dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been a year now. Wow, that's a long time. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. That's actually really impressive. It's like, I feel like most kids, when they got like a goldfish, it's dead. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Well, not really. You listened to eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly. Mostly I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one, that sort of thing. I've had lots of fish, and I'm not good at coming up with names. You found that funny. You found that surprising. You found that relatable. Yeah, I feel like it's hard to name things. You didn't have any pets, but you always had trouble naming your stuffed animals or whatever else. It was such a hard choice. A couple of them have other type of names. He pointed to a small orangish red fish who was minding its own business away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher, and that other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish? Yeah, it's nice. He then turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Can I? His smile grew a little at your interest. Sure. There's a few who don't have names right now. The newer ones, you can pick which you want to name. Pointed each of the recent acquisitions out to you. The first one was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. The second was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots, which almost resembled freckles. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank. It slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with... we gotta go with the smallest, right? Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide on a suitable name. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Frank. I just hate the ones where it's like, we can type in our own. Bubble. We'll name this little guy Flash, because he's like zipping around. Alright, it's Flash. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. He smiled proudly at Flash as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing then reappearing soon after. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. The corner of Co's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You just gotta take care of their tanks and feed them and they'll be okay. Right, my mom's can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. I don't mind it too much. I get it. I get it. They don't want to worry about more lives than the two they're already raising. That's what they say about it. I never thought about it like that before. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning you a brief confused look from Cove. One time Elizabeth, came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food and then she ran back upstairs straight after. It was kind of weird. My mom didn't think much of it at first though. But then that night, Mom went to her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. Cove's eyebrows rose at that and he leaned forward in interest. A lizard? Where'd that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer, so she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room for almost the rest of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were not happy. They worried about putting it out during the night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she knew she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. You laughed thinking back to it that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave a serious thought to his statement before you told him. It's fun. There are ups and downs. You're lucky to be an only child. It's a nice idea in general, but my sister is Elizabeth. I don't know how to explain what it is. There are ups and downs. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Cove pursed his lips at the word, considering them quietly for a while. That's interesting. I think your family is cool. He didn't have much else to say, though. While on the topic of your family, you considered your relationship with your moms too. They were absolutely the best. You got along with your moms. You thought your moms were okay. You found your moms to be difficult to deal with. I think they're the best. You couldn't have even considered having another opinion. Yeah. I thought I meant option, whatever. You couldn't have better parents. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your mom's never tried to pay someone to be your friend. Yikes! Thought prompted you to look over at Cove. He probably still didn't know that happened. You doubted that Mr. Holden mentioned it, and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. You didn't tell him it was a bad idea. You didn't tell him you weren't sure how he'd react. You didn't tell him secrets were meant to be kept. You didn't tell him. You just didn't want to have that talk with Cove. I think I should tell him. It's been long enough now to where if he overreacted, that's him being immature. You are 13 though. We're gonna tell him. You took a deep, steadying breath to prepare yourself for the conversation. Now you just had to figure out how to tell him. Cove, I have something important to tell you. Hey, you want to know something crazy? Please don't get mad about this, but I feel like for me, I'd be like, hey, you want to know something crazy? And I like act like it's not a big deal. That usually goes bad, but this is me, so we gotta go with that. Cove raised an inquisitive eyebrow at your casual tone. He turned to give you his full attention. Maybe. Like what? You stared into his bright ocean eyes. You chickened out, never mind. You told him the truth. Basically, back when you moved here, the first time I met your dad, he offered me money to be friends with you. $20. It was pretty ridiculous. You laughed lightly at the memory of it, though it trailed off oddly when you realized Cove wasn't laughing with you. Cove sat still, uncharacteristic. There was an unreadable expression on his face. His eyes seemed to look through you, and you didn't know what to do next. Then, without saying a word, Cove stood up from his bed in a single motion, and he just bolted right out of the room. For a moment, you didn't move a muscle. You were in shock. This was... Oh no. Your senses quickly came back. You shot out into the hall after him. Cove! There was no response to your call. Oh no! You could see Cove down the way. He had already sprinted back to the living room. His arms were stalked at his side with his hands tightly balled into his fists. He might not have been facing you, but you didn't need to see his face to know now how he felt. Cove was furious. His parents were nearly finished setting the table. They greeted him none the wiser of what was about to happen.
Huh?
Hey, what's up? When did you start running in the house? Are you that famished? You were to catch up in a full and stand near Cove. The parents' words didn't even register in his ears. The child was wholly focused on another matter. He was practically shaking. Cove took one more step forward and glared up at his father's face. You pay Z to be friends with me? Mr. Holden froze. He looked like a helpless deer caught in the headlights.
Seriously?
Clifford, are you serious? He whipped his head toward Kira, his eyes wide and blinking rapidly. It was only one time. The admission elicited an aghast expression from his ex-wife. Mr. Holden raised his hands up to gesture defensively. It seems like a good idea when it happened. She covered her eyes with one hand. It was clear that her patience was frayed, but she was not so shocked anymore. Mr. Holden bowed his head, rubbing the back of his neck guiltily. The fact that she accepted this as something he'd do so easily seemed to be the most crushing part. Cove just stood there, fuming silently during their little aside. His eyebrows furrowed painfully and his eyes trembled. He felt so bad for Cove. He felt so bad for Mr. Holden. I feel bad for everybody. None of this was good at all. It was terrible. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but must have been only minutes, tense silence was broken by Cove. I don't want to stay here. That immediately caught his parents' attention. They turned to him with twin expressions of worry. Hey, wait a minute, bud. Hey, wait a minute, bud. You don't have to do that. It's still your room. We'll stay out of your way, I promise. Where could you go at this time of day? It's almost night.
No.
Oh? I could stay with Z. He stormed out of the house without waiting for another response. He jumped as the door slammed closed behind him. He immediately followed after Cove. He just stood there. I have no idea how to react to this. I guess I would just follow after him. You didn't even take the time to say something to his stunned parents. You ran after Cove, shutting the door more softly behind you as you left. You spotted him easily. Cove hadn't made it far. He just reached the middle of the road. Could you stop for a second? Are you okay? He followed quietly. Are you okay? You might as well have said nothing. Cove didn't look back, nor did he answer you. Cove stomped forward, going across the street without hesitation towards your house. It didn't take long to approach the front door. You left it unlocked, so he yanked it open and went inside with you. By then, night fully came. The two of you stood tensely together in the middle of your living room. the night really hadn't gone as you imagined it would. At least Elizabeth wasn't around and your moms were out. Oh, thank God. You had no idea how you would have explained the situation to them, and you're sure Cove wouldn't have been up for that. He watched you from a distance. His expression wasn't hostile, but was not exactly welcoming either.